Welcome to the Goddammit Hello podcast. If you didn't know, this episode was a two-parter, and this is part 2, so definitely go check out part 1 before watching this. Thanks.
We're moving to the top 5. So basically what I'm telling you is that all the albums we just mentioned are absolute shit, and this is really the best albums of all time.
These are the ones. And my number 5 pick is an album that the band is one of the most popular bands of all time, but this is probably their most underrated album. The band is the Beastie Boys, and the album is Paul's Boutique, which is their second studio album after License to Ill. And when License to Ill was out, it was not that the music wasn't good and it wasn't being done seriously, but a lot of the songs were written as jokes and parodies of what hip-hop was at the time. Paul's Boutique is one of the first times that they took themselves seriously, in my opinion. It also did a lot of really interesting things with hip-hop that now are taken for granted. For instance, it's one of the first albums to really do sampling, where you take pieces of other songs and use them for your songs. Because they got away with it back then because you didn't have to license these songs. The style of music was so new, there were no laws and standards on it. So a lot of the songs on Paul's Boutique use things like Ballroom Blitz is used quite frequently throughout. They didn't have to pay any royalties for that, which is probably why they did it. You know, and I think it's forgotten because the only real Beastie Boys hit on here is Hey Ladies, which is, if you know Beastie Boys, you know that song. But there's a lot of really, really great, just solid rap songs on here. 3 Minute Rule is a great song. Shake Your Rump is my absolute favorite. And on top of that, they did a lot of really cool things with the music videos for these, which is something I always appreciated about the Beastie Boys, is that the music was always fun and the music videos were always something interesting.
All right, fair enough.
Jumbles?
Sorry, I thought I heard you start to say something. I picked for my number 5, kind of another weird pick. It's Hawaii Part 2 by Miracle Musical. I know it says Part 2. It's the only album that this band has ever made. It is a project by, I believe, some members of the band Tally Hall. If you've ever listened to them, I haven't. I've never heard their music. I probably should, because this album is fucking amazing. I don't know if I've ever really heard anything that sounds like this album. It is enthralling to me. It is at times very surreal sounding, and I really don't know how to categorize some of the things going on here. I don't know. I love this. The best song on here is absolutely, in my opinion, Black Rainbows, which is like, I don't know how to describe exactly what about this is like weird and off-putting if you've never heard it. But it's, yeah. I don't know. This album is amazing. I don't even know if I can recommend it because I think it's just so, like, out there. But I love it.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with it being out there. I actually, like, looking at it right now, this is probably the most appealing cover art wise that any of your stuff has been so far.
I don't like to go off of cover art. It's the sound that's
Jeremy,
important to
I'm
me.
your standard consumer. They put that black and white photo on there, and I'm like, this
it's
must
the sound
be good.
that's appealing to me, which is part of why I actually usually don't watch a lot of music videos, and they don't do much for me. Also, I grew up past the age of MTV being that, I guess, which is part of what feeds into why I don't watch music videos. I don't know.
Speaking of someone who grew up in the MTV age, what's your number 5 pick over there?
The MTV age. And this is a perfect album to get us into that.
We planned that.
Yeah. So my number 5 pick, talk about the MTV era, especially in the mid 2000s. This is really what does it. So the album is actually Deja Entendu by Brand New, and this album is just, I mean, it's just the tits. Like, it just,
You know what? I'm going to jump in and talk about it with you just because I have it at 3 and it doesn't make sense just to talk about it twice.
It came out in 2003. Again, you guys were babies. I was in middle school going into high school. So all the older kids listened to it and it was like cool if you like knew music from Brand New. It's like, yeah, I listen to Brand New, like, you know. And it really was like the alt punk thing for you to like Brand New. And it was such like a Long Island thing because Jesse Lacey is from Long Island. He actually, I believe, lives in Copiague now, which is bordering where I grew up, which is crazy.
Been exiled now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's besides the point.
I shouldn't say unfortunately.
But Deja Entendu, I mean, the amount of people that I see have this album cover even just as a tattoo.
I was just going to say, tattooed upon their bodies.
Tattooed upon their bodies. Like, obviously, a lot of people have, like, the smiley face from Nirvana or, you know, let me think of something.
This is the alt-punk.
The Dark Side of the Moon, yeah. But this is, like, for the millennial, the elder millennial
this
age
is the
group.
alt-punk Nirvana.
Yeah.
That's this.
This is it. Deja Entendu is a banger of an album. Every single song on this album is good. None of them are bad. None of them are skippable. You know, it's just they all bring something different to the table. And this is another band that their album, their song names on the album have almost nothing to do with the music themselves. And it just makes you kind of wonder why they're named that in the first place. But my favorite song off that album is The Boy Who Blocked His Own Shot.
That's mine too.
Yes. I love you.
There's also And the Coastline is Quiet, which is the best part, but not the best song.
Yeah. I mean, Play Crack the Sky is a great song, but yeah.
Anyway,
so it comes in at my number 5. I will get to a little bit more about why it's number 5 for me later. But Oliver has it at number 3.
Then I'm going to jump in and say why this is my number 3. And that's, we'll start with when I was in high school, this being, you know, again, something that made its way because I'm such a huge Say Anything fan. And I was in high school in the age of like Pandora being a new thing, which is how I got turned on to this initially. But it's just how much it impressed upon me that music can be this cohesive experience in a way that I'd only experienced in like older stuff like Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd. But then that music could also talk to you honestly without metaphor and just be, this is how I feel. And I'm going to write a fucking beautiful song about it, you know, because everything on this, you say there's not a bad song on the album. And I agree. All the songs are also cohesive with one another, though. Yeah. Everything you hear, you can immediately tell that's from Deja Entendu. That's what this is about. And I know kind of what he's trying to say. He's speaking to me in a way that, like, I don't get from music a lot of the time. You know, and as somebody also who struggles with depression, you know, this has been, and it sounds stupid to say, but, like, this is something that has got me through a lot of really dark times.
I completely agree. You
know, and sometimes it's just good to know, like, yeah, this guy felt the same way that I do right now, but he pulled this fucking like work of art out of himself because of that.
I actually have this music on my Apple's like library, like iTunes library, meaning I purchased the album for my iPod, like not like an iPod Touch or anything, like my regular like first gen iPod way back when. And it has been in my library ever since. And I listen to it, if not daily, at least every other day.
I'll go through month-long spurts where it's all that I listen to.
Yeah.
And then I won't touch it for a little while.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just such a powerful thing for me.
For whatever reason, Guernica keeps playing in my head right now. That's a great song too. But
they're all good. They're
I
all
digress.
good. And Boy Who Blocked His Own Shot, like to me, that like I generally say I wouldn't do song lyric tattoos, but at the end when he says you're the smell before rain and you're the blood in my veins, I get chills every time.
Well, we talked about getting those lyrics together.
What a beautiful song.
Yeah. And also if you're like a Long Island native and a Long Island enthusiast, which I liken myself to be a bit of, a lot of these songs and a lot of this music maybe the reason why it resonates so well with us is because it does feel very
It's
much
about where we are.
like about where we are.
It's about something that happened here.
Exactly.
You know, it comes with a caveat, and I won't go super into it because it's not that kind of show, but he's gotten into a little bit of trouble. And I think a lot of people, and myself included to a degree, are a little put off by that because he did some kind of disturbing stuff that I don't condone, but it doesn't change the fact that this has been the soundtrack to my life for 8+ years, and I've already purchased the music.
I think that if you have an emotional connection to a piece of art that doesn't reflect on one person's actions that was a part of making that art, you know, I mean, like, you can come for me if you really want to, but I just, that's how I feel about it.
But there's plenty of people that listen to Brand New. I don't support people who do what he did.
No, I'm not condoning it. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not romanticizing, you know, Jesse and everything like that. No. All I'm saying is that this band, not just Jesse Lacey, this band produced an amazing album and amazing song, track list, and that deserves some recognition.
And as an artist, to look at like a group of, take what it is, it's a group of Long Island high schoolers that went from making music in their garage to being, for a long time, a household name in like when you talked about rock bands, you know, that's something. And I can't knock the merits of it because of the actions of one person. And that's just how I feel about it. Anyway, Jumbles, what is your number? What number are we on now? 5?
Number 5? No.
Your number...
Brittany just did her number 5.
Is it my turn again?
Yes.
Coming in at number 4, we're going to stick with that emo... that emo streak. And we're going to talk about Taking Back Sunday for a second, which anybody who's ever listened to emo, that was their high school band. I'm sure that's a fact.
Are you going to say Tidal Wave is your number 4?
Of course I'm going to say Tidal Wave is my number 4.
Okay, so Tidal Wave is also my number 4. So we've done it again.
Well, so
inadvertently.
Here's the thing. If you like any kind of like emo punk pop, you like Taking Back Sunday, it's an indisputed fact. They're one of the greats.
And if I can go off, like, not off our podcast, because I do want this to be heard, but like kind of off topic, I think that Oliver, like, one of the things that really brought you and I together, even before we were dating, was our music tastes. And I think one of the things that I liked most about you, you know, when we were younger, was that even though you were a handful of years younger than me, we still had the same taste in music. And like, we could still like vibe off of one another listening to that music. So it's not a surprise that a lot of the albums on this list are not only the same, but literally the same number ranked, you know, for us, because we listen to a lot of this music together, and we have since before we started dating. And it's just been music is a very big part of our lives. And it's nice to see, you know, doing this. We didn't consult with each other for our lists, you know, to the extent that we were numbering and, you know, we were just saying, you know, what do you think? What do you think? But I think that we drew these lists together, and to have a lot of them at the same numbers or in the same area is kind of special. And I'm sorry. I just wanted to give that aside.
And talking about Taking Back Sunday, which is a special band for us just because we love so much of their music.
Another Long Island band, too.
You know, and another Long Island emo band who we saw actually at Great South Bay Music Festival, which is one of the greatest sounding bands I've ever seen, but one of the worst, like, audiences at a show, which is unfortunate. I know it will never happen, but I would love so dearly to see them play in a sitting arena.
I know,
which is never going to happen, just because the crowds that go to these shows are so obnoxious. So when they're standing, it just gets messy. But that's beside the point, because for a long time, Tidal Wave, I feel like to you and to me was like, oh, they went kind of poppy with it.
We slept on it for a while. Yeah. We definitely did. I will say that.
Once listening to it all the way through,
which was on Earth Day of 2 years ago with our friend
it's only
Will.
it's only been in the rotation for 2 years, but whereas the other music has been there forever. This is the most mature and cohesive their music has ever been.
Yep.
Because the thing that's always driven me crazy with Taking Back Sunday is that you'll have a song that's one thing, and then it will not transition, it will abruptly change to another thing, which has always not been really for me. But Tidal Wave doesn't do that. Tidal Wave is a collection of songs that are all written clearly from the same headspace, that all fit together and all work from front to back. And it's so nice for me to see one of my favorite bands pull off an album that I think, not like on the same level as Deja Entendu, but something that is, moving in and of its own right and something that has this huge effect on me. I love this album. I think it's the best thing they've ever done. And again, one of my favorites of all time. I don't think I can overstate that.
And I just really love that when they came out with this album, they did make a music video, because obviously music videos are no longer as important to the music scene as they once were. But, Taking Back Sunday is from the era where it was incredibly important, and they've had amazing music videos. I mean, Q Without the E is a complete, like, shot for shot, shortened remake of Fight Club, and that's just amazing to us specifically. But I really just can appreciate that the video for Death Wolf is just Adam Lazzara
and them sitting in the truck drinking beers.
They're sitting in the truck. No, they're eating sandwiches in the back of their Ford Bronco. And to me, it's almost like, I don't know if I want to call it a parody or like a satire, but it's almost like this is all we have to do now to make a music video. We used to have to literally cut down entire movies, into the span of 3.5 minutes for our music videos. But now we're just going to sit in the back of the car, eat a sandwich, drink a beer, and you're going to listen to the song, and that's going to be it.
And before moving off of them, too.
I don't want to move off of it either, because I didn't talk about it at all, but yeah.
Yeah. No, just before I've said my piece. Another band that sounds exactly the same in person as they do on the album, I found at least, and just, oh my God, he was amazing. I just wish I could have seen him. Like physically had him in my eyesight.
Yeah. I really love this album because, again, like Oliver was kind of saying, I grew up listening to them. I grew up listening to, the Louder Now album, and I'm just trying to, because they have weird album names. But I grew up
Tell
listening.
Your Friends is another great album.
Tell Your Friends, blah, 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 Where You Want to Be, New Again. I grew up listening to all of these albums, and to take such a break, because I really didn't listen to Taking Back Sunday for a good chunk of time, other than repeat listening to things that I grew up to. And then when Tidal Wave came out, I remember our friend Will was really into it, and I just
because when they're younger, it is all that angsty, like, I'm sad because, and this is just like, here's somebody that's dealt with sadness for a long time, but the music is still fun, and it still has this great energy to it. If they stopped here, this is the only album you ever had to put out, honestly.
And my favorites off the album are All Excess and Death Wolf. And Death Wolf is the one that has the music video where they're just sitting in the Bronco. I just panned over to it, and Adam Lazzara is literally looking at their album and, and showing off, and they're laughing about it. It's cute. So
yeah, no, mine is All Excess and
we don't go in there.
Nope.
Call Come Running.
Nope. Gonna get you if it takes me all night long.
Do you not have it up on the screen that you can see what the songs are
I
called?
have a music video up on the screen. Actually, I'm sorry. This is embarrassing. No, You Can't Look Back is the other. So All Excess and You Can't Look Back, but all the songs are good.
I realized in my list that I sent to you for my number 3 pick that my favorite song is You Can't Look Back, but that's because I was thinking about Taking Back Sunday, and that's not the name of the song for number 3, but it doesn't matter. You're not putting our list up, so I just have to. Anyway.
All right, Jeremy.
My number 4, I can't believe I put this high. My number 4 is When I Pretend to Fall by The Long Winters. So this is an album that I did not even realize I liked so much. It was in rotation for me for a while, and I was kind of like, this is an okay album. And then Spotify does its rewind thing, and in 2019, Spotify was like, yeah, When I Pretend to Fall was your favorite album of the entire year. I was like, that's a mistake. There's no fucking way. And I went and I listened to it, and like song after song, I was like, never mind. No, I get it. I love this album. Is this a good album? I don't think so. I don't think this is a really good album, but I can't not listen to it for some reason. Does that make sense? Like, I don't want to recommend it because I think it's just like, I think it's like okay. That's the thing. Objectively, I think all of the songs are okay, I don't know, man. I listen to these songs all the time, and it's I love this album. And the best song on this album is Blanket Hog. Absolutely, it is the best song that this band has ever written.
I'm looking at him playing live right now, and
He's
wow,
shit live too.
They look tripped out. They look high as hell. They look like they don't know where they are, and they look sweaty as fuck.
Yeah, they're not a. I will agree. Also, I'm pretty sure if you turn the sound on, they would probably sound like shit.
I won't do that.
Because I've watched some of their live performances, and John Roderick, who's like the main guy of the band, he's like not even that great at what he does. He's pretty shit live. Even as someone who likes the music.
There are a lot of bands that people like just because of how things come together and less about who's a great musician and who's not.
Well, because
Sex Pistols being the most famous of the bunch.
Well, because I've seen people talk about this band and they'll be like, part of the charm to me is that John Roderick is a horrible, horrible performer, and that's like charming. I'm like, I don't know, man. Kind of just sounds bad to me sometimes.
I mean, that's almost the same as the Front Bottoms, which is a band that none of us like, but that's what everybody says. When you ask them, why do you like the Front Bottoms, they always say, well, I like his monotone voice. It's like, no, you just like that he's not a good singer.
Right.
Yeah, but I love this album. I think lyrically, some of the songs I think are really interesting, and it's hard. I don't have a lot of praise for this album. It's really hard to say, but this album accidentally became one of my favorite albums, and I don't even think I like it that much, but it really, really is an album that I love and can't not listen to.
It's funny when things work out that way.
Yeah.
All right, hun. We're getting into...
That's, yeah. Oh, you had number 4 is the same as Oliver's.
Yes.
So unless you had more to talk about it,
Nope.
we could just move straight on to number 3.
But my number 3 was
true,
Deja Entendu.
Does that mean I get to go twice in a row?
In turn, makes it your turn, Jeremy. What is your
I get
number
to go twice
3
in a row? I wasn't ready
album?
for this. My number 3 is...
Period.
So
I was
we're...
going to say of the year.
All right, so we're getting to... I mean, you know this one. My number 3 is Out of the Blue by Electric Light Orchestra.
Ooh. That is a great album.
It is a really great album. This is the one, if you're not overly familiar with Electric Light Orchestra, this is the one with Mr. Blue Sky.
There you go.
So, yeah. Electric Light Orchestra was one of my favorite bands for like a really, really long time. And I don't know, I have a hard time saying why. It's like I inherited a lot of tastes of music from my parents, which I think is kind of natural. I don't know if you guys...
For sure.
Yeah, 100%.
And...
I didn't just wake up liking Pink Floyd.
Yeah, well, and Electric Light Orchestra wasn't really one of those, but it's in the same... Like, my parents like Electric Light Orchestra, but they don't own any of the albums. They don't listen to most of the music outside of, like, obviously things like Mr. Blue Sky. This is kind of a bridge for me of when I started to really find my own music that I liked, but it's still like a holdover of like, this is my parents' music, but I'm exploring that space to figure out the type of stuff that I love, you know?
Right.
And yeah, this album is amazing. Hold on, I just wanted to pull it up so I could look at it while I'm talking about it.
I'll just slide in really quick
and
say, while you're doing your thing there, Electric Light Orchestra is a band that holds a very, very special place in my heart.
Oh, yeah.
I love this album. I love even more Face the Music, which Face the Music, when my best friend moved away to high school, the last night that I ever spent with him was sitting on the porch listening to that album and thinking about how my life was never going to be the same. And not that that was a bad thing, but it never was, you know? And I think that they were such a comfort to me during all of that. And they were another one that I had a hard time cutting off the list. But then we accidentally saw them at Disney World.
Yeah.
We were just walking in Epcot and we were like, they have live concerts there.
I have to go see them before, like...
Dude, they were fucking awesome. They sounded like the record.
I'm not a big concert guy, but I gotta go see them before I'd like miss the chance, you know?
It's one of those things. They're definitely older guys, and you can tell. but like just the magic of them being there and playing the songs that I've heard my whole life, you know. And then we were talking about like deep tracks from them out of just by coincidence, because I heard them playing as we were walking, not knowing we were about to walk in on them playing.
Yeah.
And I was like, Knight Rider, what a great song. Not really one that you hear a lot. And then we're sitting at the show. They go, we're going to pull out a track we don't play a lot. We're going to play Knight Rider. I looked at her. I'm like, they are? Man. No, but just, you know, on the note of Electrolyte, not to commandeer it from you.
No, I mean, yeah. I mean, whatever. This is there are three of us here. We could all talk about it. I didn't pick a lot of albums that you guys know. So, like, go for it.
No, you really didn't.
As a favorite song on this, okay, so obviously you don't want to pick something like Mr. Blue Sky because like what fucking whatever. I do kind of want to do the basic thing and say that the entire side 3 of that album though, which is subtitled Concerto for a Rainy Day and is 4 songs. If you'll allow me to call that one song,
sure, I'll allow it.
Fucking amazing. It's got Standing in the Rain, which I would say is my favorite on the album if you wouldn't let me. It's got Standing in the Rain, Big Wheels, Summer and Lightning, and it caps off with Mr. Blue Sky. And it's about how weather can affect your mood. Just like, can't put into words how amazing it sounds. I absolutely, like, yeah. No, I love this stuff.
They do so many interesting things too, with just how they sound and the different instruments they use. It's like, this is so fun. And, you know, it's funny that you said that like you were turned on to this kind of like in a realm of your parents. I turned my mom on to Electric Light Orchestra like completely.
Well, no, what I'm saying is like, this is not, like, I'm sure my parents
It's not
like
their
this.
music per se.
Yeah, it's not, like, I inherited the taste from them, but I didn't inherit this band from them. So this is kind of like the bridge to me finding my own music in a sense, if that makes
Absolutely. All right, hun. You're number 3.
Yep, number 3. So I'm gonna bounce off of my number 4 pick too, which was Taking Back Sunday, Tidal Wave, which was a newer album, and as we said, a more mature album. Then I'm gonna go straight into number 3, which is another brand new album, and it is Science Fiction. And I went into this kind of being opposed to doubling down on albums, but if Deja Entendu was my angsty teen self, Science Fiction is my depressed adult self. Because they just, I mean, both albums just have so much meaning, but for totally different reasons, totally different points in your life, totally different vibes. But they're both just so good. And I put Science Fiction higher than Brand New if I was 15.
Deja Entendu.
Higher than Deja Entendu. If I was 15, I would be arguing with myself, and I'll argue with Oliver until the cows come home. But to me, as an adult, Science Fiction is the way to go. That album is just perfection, in my opinion. It just... the songs, the vibes, the feelings behind them all, the anger, but the acceptance, the severity, but the lightheartedness, and the diametric opposites of the feelings versus the words, and the feelings versus the tone. And it's a great album. I actually started while I was drawing, getting into drawing, I actually started doing a different drawing for every song, and just something that was a metaphor for each of the songs on the album, because it's deep. I mean, this is another one that like I didn't want to listen to because I was afraid it was going to ruin what I had loved so much from when I was in high school. But my friend Will, he's a good person to go to for music suggestions. I think it's fair to
cite Will Holmes as the biggest
at Point C Surf.
At Point C Surf is without question the biggest Brand New fan, not just on Long Island, but probably that has ever lived, including the members of the band.
And to be fair and to give a proper shout out to our friend Will Holmes at Point East, he is very much an advocate for music, for listening to new music, different kinds of music. And if he likes something, he will make you listen to it, and he will make you like it. And I'm not saying it in a way that it's like you're not gonna like it, but he's gonna force you to. But like
He'll make you like it.
He will
because
make you like it
loves
because
so
he
much.
loves it. Yeah, and really, he made us listen to science fiction, and at first I was like, "What is this depressive shit album?" But then the more I listened to it, I was like, "Oh my god, this album is everything I could have hoped for and more." And my suggestion on the album is "Can't Get It Out," which is the second album, the second song. It's wonderful. My second suggestion would be 451, because it's a little harder. But they're just great. Great. Everything is great. It's all good. Jeremy, this is going to be my suggested album for you if, we get a chance to at any point in time. But number 3, brand new science fiction, had to go there.
And I got to weigh in on it just because I'm a huge fan of the band and why this was not on mine. And I definitely consider this to be some of the strongest music that not only he has written, but has ever been written about depression. Mm-hmm. The problem with that is that it is too sad for me to enjoy. I love songs on it, but I can't turn this on because I go to a weird place when I hear this album.
There are certain songs on there that I know that I love and I listen to, and you literally have to ask me
I
to
gotta,
turn it off.
well, some of them, and I'm not about that, but like some of them are very like triggering to me and like
Yeah.
how I'm feeling. Not that, that's for you. You enjoy that,
No,
but,
and everybody, deals with mental illness in different ways.
And that's like the issue here is that while Deja Entendu is very much about depression and what happens when you're depressed, it's still hopeful at the end in a way that this is not.
Right.
This is about, holy shit, I'm wiped, which is a real feeling and something that is a terrible thing that human beings are conditioned to go through, that somebody needs to talk about. I just can't handle it.
Yeah. And maybe at your age, I might not have been able to handle it too. Maybe as you get a little bit older, you'll start to feel a little bit different about it. I do believe it's much more of a mature album, especially in comparison to Deja Entendu. So, give yourself some time with it. It might grow on you. Think about the people who love the album are me and Patty, and John Giuliano,
And I don't not like it.
No,
that's the thing. It's just Deja will always have that place in my heart as like.
And Deja is a great album. I'm not contesting that. I'm just saying I think in terms of music and what the band is capable of, I do think Science Fiction is a better album.
This is such a testament to great musicians, at play and,
right.
and working. And what a great note to leave off on, because this is the last ever brand new album, and just like the last song, Batter Up, that's a gut punch, man.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
I
a
literally
strong out.
I will have tears in my eyes when I listen to that song. It's just.
It's funny because I have a very similar note coming up, but it just, oh man.
So that was number 3.
Number 3, Jeremy. We don't only like depressing music. I might throw in. I do like other music. This will be much more lighthearted than a lot of the other stuff that I've been citing. But I've been a fan of Wax since I was like 10 years old. Wax is a rapper that has been present on YouTube for years and years and years and years, and started doing kind of like comedy songs, but has now evolved into a real rapper talking about real stuff. And I love all of his music to death. It is such a part of me and how I enjoy music. I think the writing is so clever and so different and so out there, and the metaphors that he says are just things that you don't hear all that often in music, So the problem here is that I had a hard time picking which Wax album I thought was most reflective on who he is. And because there's a lot of different stages of Wax, there's, his biggest hit album was Scrub Life, which a lot of people know, even if they don't know Wax. And Scrub Life was a really, really big hit for him, but the music isn't as mature as it got later on. And to me, the most mature Wax album is the Cookout Chronicles, which is an album about a guy that has just finished AA and is throwing a summer cookout. And the songs are just, and part of it is because it came out right when I was leaving high school, and I just very much remember the days of listening to this all the time. And another part of it is just watching the progression of an artist that I really like make better and better music. I definitely think this is some of the most mature music he's ever made. Which is interesting because it's definitely a step down production wise from his biggest album, Continue, which got radio play and was huge for him. And I'll cite First Love, I think is a really, really great Wax song to start on. It's got a really nice beat to it. And it's just about how he can never give any girlfriend that he dates the same attention that he gives his music, which is why he doesn't think he'll ever keep a woman happy, which is just an interesting take for a rapper to have in a song, I think, for sure. And much more honest than you get with traditional studio brand hip hop, because Wax is more about being totally brutally honest and talking the way that you are, but it's done by a guy that has kind of branded himself as a fuck up. So the music is really fun and really different. And I don't know, Wax has just always been a very big part of my life. So that is my number 2 pick. Wax, the Cookout Chronicles. Definitely go give it a listen, but overall, listen to all of Wax. It's great. I can't recommend more highly. That's what I got.
Pretty good. All right, my number 2 is it's "Bat Out of Hell" by Meatloaf.
Ooh.
Which is, I talked before when I was talking about Out of the Blue about inheriting music from my parents. Very, very much this is stuff that like my parents listened to, which is why I like it. Like there's no denying that like Paradise by the Dashboard Light was on a lot, and I heard it a lot as a young child when my first ideas of music were being formed, and it's has created that being one of my favorite albums of all time. This is the first album I think I ever listened to that I was like, is a perfect album. There is no song on here at all that I will not listen to. It's one of those to me that like if I hear any of these, like I have to go and I listen to the whole thing. I don't know what it is. Like I'm so a weird way to say it, but I'm so like attracted to the album in a sense that if I like catch a whiff of it, I uncontrollably and like I have to like go to it,
Of course, we were actually just at a Spanish place to get dinner right before we left for our trip, and outside there was live music like at the store over, and I know it's not on Bat Out of Hell, but they were playing Anything for Love. Yeah, but I won't do that, and we're listening to it. It's not generally in my rotation, not that I don't love the music, but it just isn't there. Back to Hell. But we drove home and we listened to Meatloaf the whole time, so I completely understand what you're saying with you're just drawn to it once you hear it.
Yeah.
I will go on record and say that I think that Paradise by the Dashboard Lights is probably one of the best songs ever made.
It's
absolutely
obviously in the top 10 rock songs that have ever been recorded.
It's a showstopper, that song. And it's a song that everybody knows and everybody loves, and you can sing along to it pretty easily, and it's a good one.
Even if you don't know the words, you know what's coming next.
No, you know what's coming.
As a fun story, I didn't even know that it was one song when I was a kid. I like, what song is this? I like it a lot. I've heard it a lot. And he's like, oh, it's called Paradise by the Dashboard Light. And then the latter third of the song comes on, and I'm like, oh, this one too. And he was like, this is the same song. Like, really? Like, yeah, I was like, I never noticed that these two songs always play back to back because they are actually one song.
They're actually the same.
Yeah, I was a fucking dumb kid.
And funny enough, the song was actually in one of my favorite movies growing up, which was Josie and the Pussycats. I actually dressed up as Valerie for Halloween one year, because like when I was in like middle school, because I loved it so much. And it plays at like a very like opportune moment for it to play. And I remember liking it in the movie and being like, oh, I've heard this song before, and I like this song because I was only like 10 when the movie came out. I was like, I like this song. I know this song. And then like that from there, it was like every time I heard it, I was like, oh my God, I love this song. You know, it's just so funny when you can kind of recall like when you actually like became
when something came onto your radar like that.
You were just
absolutely.
like, oh, right. Like I do know this song and I do like this song. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You also like, you look at Meatloaf, that guy's had so like, you never think about it, but that guy's had so many like it things in his career.
Yeah.
Because there's Bat Out of Hell. Then there's Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh my God.
Then there's fucking Fight Club.
Yeah.
All these fucking things that like people know the guy for, and they're all very fucking different.
Right.
Yeah. This is sounds fantastic. Every song on this is
even just like I'm watching them sing it right now. Oh my God. Even like on mute, it's so fun. It just is. Everything about it.
Amazing. And I don't know, is it too basic to say that the best song on this is Paradise? Like,
it is the best song, though.
Sometimes I think that Bat Out of Hell is a better song. Sometimes I think
Sometimes I realize I'm wrong.
Sometimes I realize I'm wrong. Currently, I'm realizing I'm wrong. Bat Out of Hell, though, is also fucking fantastic. Like that.
But as you said, there's no sleeper on this album.
Yeah.
There's only 5 fucking songs.
There's 7 songs.
7 songs, regardless.
Which is not a lot of songs.
No, it's a quickie, but they're also long
They're
songs.
also all very long songs. So it's like they condensed it into what worked, and they cut out everything they didn't. It's like, oh, maybe they didn't, because it's still like a full album. It's just like Bat Out of Hell could have been 2 separate songs, but instead they did that song for 10 minutes, and it's fucking great. Yeah.
Solid pick.
Amazing.
And what's your number 2 over there?
So we started this list reading as a personal read and dig at my number 2 choice. But my number 2 choice is unabashedly Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There is nothing wrong with that. And I didn't mean it to be a dig at that. I just was trying to express why I wouldn't have put that
here's
on.
my thing. I'm not going to preach to people and tell them why Dark Side of the Moon is the best album that there ever is, because that is obvious. It is literally one of the best albums that was ever made.
That's undisputed by everybody.
Despite not being on my list, I
Right.
completely agree.
It's on my list because there is too much that goes on the album that means too much to me for different reasons for me to not recognize it as being one of the most important and impactful albums I've ever listened to. I mean, like, I listened to this music before I even knew what music was. Like, my father's a huge Pink Floyd fan. You know, anything Floyd related makes me think of him. I remember listening to these songs with him. My dad will quote them to me and tell me how they make him feel about life and different things. And if you know my dad's kind of an eccentric guy.
He's an outspoken guy when it comes to stuff like that.
But I get a lot of my personality and a lot of my quirkiness, I feel like, from him. And I definitely have a lot of his music taste, and I can really appreciate that. And Dark Side is just a perfect example of that. You know, he'll tell me parts of songs that he likes, different lyrics that mean different things to him, where he was at when he would listen to them. So the album just means a lot to me, and a lot to me in terms of the connection with my father. You know, my father's still very much alive and everything. It's not like that. But, you know, it just makes me feel more connected to him. And that's what really makes me love Dark Side of the Moon. And, you know, I could go on and on about the artistry, like how beautiful it is, the lyrics, the music, and what it means in pop culture and for rock music and music in general. But at the end of the day, it's number 2 on my list because I couldn't live without listening to these songs. And I remember we had a conversation, and I'm just going to be a little quick aside. We had a conversation that with my dad, I don't know if it was last year when we were going to Pumpkins or 2 years ago, in which he said, you know, you like this music, but I've been listening to this music for over 40 years. Like, to think about the fact that my dad
I don't
has
just like it.
Yeah, I don't just like it. It's literally been a part of my life for longer than you've been alive, you know, and I've listened to it, and I'll still listen to it. He'll still put it on. He'll, like, you know, it's not like I don't want to listen to Dark Side of the Moon. You know, it's just amazing to think that, like, for our parents, you know, specifically, if you like this kind of thing, it's been around for so long that it's like almost like a second skin, you know. It's just
You've always heard this.
Yeah, you've always.
Well, that's
known
almost
it.
what I was talking about, and I would never compare. But that's almost what I was talking about with Deja Entendu, and what I'll say about my number one also. It's like certain things, when you hear them early enough and you go on, you listen to them forever, that is the soundtrack of your fucking life.
Yeah.
You know, and I definitely feel that about Dark Side of the Moon. Honestly, I credit like me liking music with Dark Side. When my friend Charlie, his across the street neighbor, died when we were very young. And we went to his house and we raided the dumpster. And the one thing I found was a bootleg copy of Dark Side of the Moon, like on a burned disc in like a sleeve with like a little picture of the triangle, like hand drawn on it. And that was the first time I listened to the album. I just remember I was lying on the floor of my bedroom at my parents' house with like an old school boombox. Just like my fucking mind was fucking blown open. It was like, you didn't know that music could be like that.
And it's amazing that music is like that and was like that way before all these advances in technology and, you know, computerizing music and, you know, the things that are capable now were not capable back then, yet you created such an impactful album, you know, that has withstood the test of time and will continue to do so and will trump pretty much anything that comes out nowadays, you know, for a lot of people. So.
And even though I didn't pick it because I picked The Wall just because it was more significant. Dark Side is the better album than The Wall, and I'll throw that out there. It's just the way that things make me feel. Yeah. There probably will never be a better album than Dark Side of the Moon. No, honestly,
I definitely don't think so. All right.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And and I said what I said before about like I didn't want to pick an album like that because it didn't seem like. It almost didn't seem worth saying. It's so obvious. But I also, like, this album took me a really long time. I didn't really listen to it all the way through for a very long time. It got, like, it's going to sound stupid. I was kind of, like, afraid of it.
Like as if you weren't going to like it and you missed the boat. I get that.
I felt like there was a period of time where I felt safe kind of saying, like, I have never listened to it, so I don't know if I will like it, instead of listening to it and being like, oh, I don't know what all the fuss is about, and I don't get to be in on this thing that the entire world gets to be in on. And so, stupidly, I was like afraid of listening to this album for a while until I finally did. And of course, it's amazing and it's beautiful and it's everything that music could be. But because of things like that, it doesn't have the same kind of connection to me that other albums have, because I just took too long to get into it. It doesn't have that like listening to it your whole life type thing, you know?
Yeah. Oh, and I wanted to just, I mean, not that I need to recommend or, you know, pick out the best song on the album, but Brain Damage into Eclipse. I didn't even know until I was much older that those were not one song. Because when you listen to them on the radio, they always play them back to back as if they are one song.
And of course, the whole song feeds, but some things cannot split up.
The whole album feeds, but yes. But yeah, so, you know, I understand why they play them back to back, but I always just consider them to be one song, really, not two separate songs. And I mean, the end of Eclipse, if I were into getting a full sleeve tattoo, I would somehow make it the end of Eclipse, you know, like the lyrics in Eclipse, but I'd have to really work on drawing that. So anyway, moving on. Number one. But
before we do number one,
we got to do some honorable mentions. And Jeremy, I'm going to let you go first, even though I should, because I'm not ready.
Oh, sure. I'll go first. I did kind of put Dark Side of the Moon as an honorable mention.
Well, there you
go. It's a crime not to mention it. Mm-hmm. I wrote on my list literally any Led Zeppelin. Only not on my list because I couldn't find a song that the whole thing was something that I like attached to as an idea. I also put an album, Beware of the Dogs by Stella Donnelly. I don't know if we were doing this, but I'm going to put the best song on the album. I love the song Mosquito on that.
You can do that with any album.
Whatever you want, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to kick you off the podcast for saying which one is your favorite.
It's a good album.
Dare you express your opinion?
We're not going to go too in depth with these. I'm also going to say my last honorable mention is Stay a While by the Cactus Channel.
I like the name of that.
Yeah, right.
It is not a cactus. I have Eleanor Shellstop's file. It is not. I do not have a cactus.
Okay. What are your honorable mentions?
My honorable mentions. So while we're on the Pink Floyd train, "Wish You Were Here," the album, and "Wish You Were Here," the song, is my absolute favorite Pink Floyd song. There is only one reason why this album is not in my top 10. It should be, but it's not. And that's because I couldn't go into it wholeheartedly knowing that I absolutely despise one song on the album. And that is "Welcome to the Machine." It does not belong on that album. It ruins the flow of the album. And I just would feel so much better if it was just omitted from it entirely.
From the discography, really, I hate that song.
Yeah, I don't like that song at all. So I don't have it on the list because of that, but I love "Wish You Were Here." I love "Shine On You Crazy Diamond." I love the meaning behind those songs. I have a "Wish You Were Here" tattoo, which not only reminds me of the album, but reminds me of my father. That's a good one. That's a really good one. That's really significant for me. And it's upsetting for me that I couldn't put it in my top 10 because I hate "Welcome to the Machine" so much. But I tried to keep as pure of a mind as I could when creating the top 10. My other honorable mentions are "American Idiot" by Green Day. Again, another really great album. I've listened to that album so many times. I used to listen to it on long drives when I would go upstate with my family on my Walkman, like back when listening to CDs was a thing, and it would be one of the only CDs I had. So I would listen to it on repeat, and I loved it. I know pretty much every word to every song on the album, and it's no surprise that that's a good one. And then my last honorable mention is going to be the soundtrack for "Hedwig and the Angry Inch" on Broadway by Neil Patrick Harris and, written by John Cameron Mitchell. The reason that it's not on the list is because I wanted to mention what I said before, that I would love to do a list of musicals and movie musicals. And Hedwig would be, definitely on my list and towards the top, because that is a rock opera and it is incredible. I saw it live twice. I've seen the movie a few times. It's just so emotional and so, it's so current, even though it's like 20 years old, because it's about a transgendered woman and, and her struggle being an American, because she's originally, not from America. And it's just so interesting. And definitely worth a listen, even if you never have an intention of seeing the movie or seeing the
I'm also
show.
going to say, we had that movie on the other day. That thing blew my mind. I only caught the last 10 minutes. Yep. Oh, my God.
Yep. It's out there, but it's a cult classic, for the musical theater people, and it's a good one. So that's my last honorable mention.
And for my honorable mentions, they've all pretty much been mentioned during this show, but I got Muse, the Drones album, I think is their best, and that's on there just as one of the funnest things to go see in concert. Foo Fighters, The Color and Shape, like I said, mine and Brittany's song is Everlong by the Foo Fighters. I hope to hear it play at our wedding one day, in all of its different versions.
It will not only be played at our wedding, it will be played multiple times in multiple versions at our wedding.
Correct. But the other songs on it just are not up to par with that amazing and beautiful song. ELO, Face the Music, which we discussed. Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, which we just discussed. And then last but certainly not least, I have Kanye West and Jay-Z with Watch the Throne. Definitely something I consider to be one of the best hip-hop albums of all time. There's a couple tracks on there that are sleepers for me, but overall, very, very solid.
It was a dark time in music streaming when it was not available on Spotify.
Oh my God, when it was available exclusively on Tidal?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Anyway.
Yeah, but it's back and everything's right with the world now.
All right, guys, let's get our drum roll going.
Okay, number one.
Oliver, take it away.
I cannot say enough about this next album. Say Anything's Is a Real Boy is probably the most important piece of music that I've ever heard in my whole life. And it's one of those things that I've thought about over the years, because it is quite literally, there is not a week in my life where I don't listen to something from this album or reference something from this album. It's become engraved even in things that I say, and sayings that I like are from this album. And, outlooks that I have on life are things that are from this album, and I've talked about it with Jeremy in the past that if I heard it today, it would perhaps not be my favorite thing. Because when I heard it, I felt very alone all the time and very angry that I felt that way. And then here's this music by somebody who feels the same exact way. And it's so fun and it's so different and it's so out there. And he's dealing with all of the same problems that I was having at that time, but different, you know? And as I continue on in my life, it's just like the same things pop up that are, things that have been referenced in this album. It's something that got me through my first breakup. It's something that got me through my first real pitfall in life, not the same incident, two separate, times. And it's something that I'll always go back to. People love it because of, a lot of people like it because it's Max Bemis, the lead singer's life just splat on the paper. Which is a little fucked up because then later people have said about his later albums like, oh, it's such a bummer that he got off drugs, which I'm sure is hard to hear, but the music did get worse. It's a band that will never pull out something as good as this album is. And it's music that I think has been following me forever. I cannot stress that enough. A lot of people love the main hit, the radio play, Alive with the Glory of Love. Which is a great song, but in my opinion doesn't fit really on this album because it's about the Holocaust and everything else is contemporary about his breakup.
But you did recently learn and shared with me that it is a metaphor fool.
Yes, it is a metaphor fool and actually that's another thing is that the music, the more that I look into it, the more that the music evolves and the meanings change. Because Max Bemis did an anniversary video with AV Club where he was talking about Alive with the Glory of Love. He said, obviously, everything else is about me and my life. This is a song about two people that were in love with each other and were trying to make it work, and the universe was just telling them it's not happening. But they were going to stay together as long as they could until the universe physically ripped them apart, which is how he felt about his first girlfriend. And the most extreme iteration of that would be two people in the Holocaust, trying to stay together at the same time. And it's a beautiful song, just like the rest of the album. It's just, has never fit really for me, but it does more now. My favorite on the whole album is Every Man Has a Molly, which I think is just such an angry song, but it's got real emotion to it. And that's what all the music is just his emotions just laid out flat on the page for everybody to see. And it's one of those things I say, and I'll get to the point real fast because I know I'm rambling a little bit. But I say that it continually comes back at me, every couple months, and it just gets a firmer and firmer hold. And while we were making this list, I had it on because it was always going to be number one. And then I was listening because sometimes I like to look up what people say about stuff that I like. So I looked up some Is a Real Boy reviews, and I knew that Say Anything had ended back in 2019. But I didn't like the second to last album they put out, so I never bothered even researching their newest album, which was the one that the band was leaving on. And then I heard a review, and the reviewer mentioned that it is a direct sequel to Is a Real Boy. Meaning, because Is a Real Boy was written as a rock opera that they then took the story out of and just left the songs. So I look up the title of the album. And the album is called Oliver Appropriate. So the sequel to my all-time favorite album is named, the same, not named after me, but named the same as me. And in listening to it, it's still doing that same thing that Say Anything has always done for me, where they're talking about things that, and I'll throw it up right here. They're talking about things that I either have gone through or am going through right now. And I'm on my way home listening to this album, coming home from work for the first time, and I'm almost in tears because I feel so in touch with the person that I was when I first heard Is a Real Boy years and years ago, but it's just now, today. And that was such a trip for me, and it's amazing to me that this band can still mold me in that sense. With something that they wrote so fucking long ago. And even if you look at the album art, he looks like Skinny Oliver did back in high school. And it's
a little bit.
It's nice. I'll also stress that it's not. My life wasn't as dark as this album maybe is, but some of the things that are mentioned, and I love it.
I grew up listening to Say Anything as well. They weren't always my favorite, but I did know a bunch of songs off of Is a Real Boy. Obviously, I knew Alive with the Glory of Love, and it was a big joke amongst like my age group to like the song Wow, I Can Get Sexual Too. So I definitely was very familiar with it. I never knew somebody could love the album as much as Oliver does. But his appreciation for it has made me appreciate it more. And we actually went to see Say Anything together in concert right when we first started dating. And it was very good. And, this is one of those things where it's like appreciation by association. And that's definitely how I feel. So snaps for your number one from me.
You introduced me to this album, and I'll agree, it's pretty good. He's got such a unique way of... He's got such a unique voice.
He does, in the way that
in a couple different meanings, if that makes sense.
Yeah, in the way that he like even says specific words is different to like which is what turned me on to it at first, is not just like the anger and but it just the way things are said is not your typical. Definitely something interesting to listen to. I don't think anybody will ever love it as much as I do, but give it a shot. Maybe you will. Maybe you'll like Oliver Appreciated. Oliver Appropriate. Oliver feels appreciated because the last album is appropriate for me. I'm old enough to listen to it, Jeremy.
Yeah. I guess that's my number one now.
Your number one is Oliver Appropriate?
No.
It's not that good.
I'm realizing as I'm talking about my favorite albums, I kind of like accidentally almost told a story with my top 3 albums, where I say that Bat Out of Hell is music that I've known my whole life and I kind of inherited from my parents. And Out of the Blue was me first really exploring my own tastes, but still within the confines of the type of stuff that my parents listened to. And my favorite album of all time, The Seldom Seen Kid by Elbow, is really one of the first albums that was wholly my own. I didn't get it from my parents. I don't really remember where I got it from. And it's still in a way mine and belongs to just me. I've never spoken to another person that's heard of this band or this album, which is strange because they're not really like, I don't think they're very like, because it's not like a hidden thing. It's not like, you know what I mean?
No, they're not.
But it is unique in a way that it's just mine, if that makes sense. And I was trying to plan out what I wanted to say about all of these albums, and I got to this one, and I didn't even realize until I was done. I had just kind of planned out doing like a track by track review of this album and talking about what each individual song meant to me, and I'm not going to do that. I think that's too much. I don't think that's really appropriate.
Give me some of the highlights here. I talked about Is a Real Boy for a long time.
Well, I think I will, but it's, this is one of the reasons I realized this had to be my number one is this is really the only album on here that I noticed I was talking about emotionally and not just the sound. I don't know if you picked up on that. I didn't really talk a lot about how these songs impacted me and what they meant to me emotionally, but this album I found it at a really specific time in my life, and I explored a lot of emotions within me through these songs for a very long time. Some songs didn't hit until like years later after I had discovered this album. And it's kind of one of the only albums I know where so much of it means so much to me in that way. And to give you some of the highlights, like I said, they have a song titled "Friend of Ours," which when I first really listened to this song, it doesn't have a lot of lyrics, and I didn't know what the lyrics were, and I didn't really know what any of it meant, but the song reached me so profoundly that I knew what it was about. It's about the death of a very close friend, and its ability to convey. It wasn't until like years later I found an interview with one of the members of the band that talked about that it actually is about that was like confirmed for me. But its ability to wordlessly and purely through its music convey an idea and emotion so well and deeply to me and resonate with me like that is special to me, and I don't know, I connect with this album and I love it a lot. It is this isn't like a manliness thing. I don't cry. I haven't cried in a very, very long time. There are
if you couldn't tell from this podcast, apparently I fucking cry all the time.
Yeah.
Because
and again, I don't mean that as no, I'm a man, I don't cry. It's like, no, that is a fact. I in the past decade I have maybe cried like one time, and I actually think that's very unfortunate. But this album, there's a part of this album that this is the only thing that has brought me anywhere close to tears on my list. Actually, strangely, on the floor of your house, listening to a song on this album, Oliver used to do this thing where he'd say, "Come over to my house right now, let's hang out." And then I'd get there and he'd be fast asleep and I'd just hang out.
Yeah, not much has changed, huh?
I'd hang out in his living room by myself for a bit until he woke up. And there was just a day I sat on the floor, I laid on the floor of your living room and I listened to this album, and I was brought close to tears, and not a lot of music has done something like that to me. And I don't know, I think you could tell I'm talking about this one differently. It means so many different things to me as this bridge to finding my own music that I love versus music I get from my parents, and being, like, and the thing you said about Is a Real Boy, I don't know if I listened to it now if it would mean the same thing. Obviously, some of these songs were found and hit me at kind of exactly the right time, even if I think that, like, for example, Audience with the Pope is not like really a great song, but I can't deny that there was a point in my life where I was like, this is about me. It's a stupid song, but like, I really felt like I connected with it despite how much I think it's not that great of a song. But I don't know. This album just means a lot to me. I feel like I'm repeating myself now.
I hear you. I'm listening. I don't want to stop your flow.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say about it without doing what I said before, which is just going track by track and just listing all the things they have meant to me and what they're about and why I love these songs. So I'll just kind of end and say, like, I think it's hard to pick a favorite song. I think I have to pick The Bones of You being my favorite song, which is, I actually showed you that song once. I don't know if you remember it.
I do remember it.
I played you both at one point Mirror Ball off this album, which admittedly was a bad choice. I don't think it's the type of music you guys listen to a lot. I don't know how you felt about it.
I liked it. I like Bones of You better.
Yes, Bones of You is a better song. I just like Mirror Ball was more of a thing that I was into at that moment, although I do think I do love that song a lot. But yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's an album that means everything to me. I don't know if it'll ever leave me. It's like we say, it's like, it's kind of just part of you. You hear it at a perfect time in your life. It connects with you on it resonates with you on a really, really deep level, and it is just a part of you the rest of your life. And it being even an album that like I said before, I've never actually spoken to another person that has heard this album. It's special in that way that it's mine, you know? It belongs to me personally and privately only, you know? Which almost shooting myself in the foot, being like, I think you should all listen
Which
to it.
Which is also, but that's very much how I felt about Is a Real Boy. And then even more so when they put out a fucking album called Oliver Appropriate that was the sequel to the album that I love. You know, it's weird how music can do shit like that.
Yeah.
All right, number ones.
All right, so I guess this is the last album on this list, and it is a big one for me, obviously. And my number one list for my top albums of all time is The Black Parade by My Chemical Romance.
Great fucking pick.
Yeah. If I could say that this is one of the most iconic and best, if not the best, rock album of my generation, then I will say that, because I truly, truly, truly believe it. This album is art. Like I know I've said that a lot, but there's really no other way to say it. And I think one of the things that I love most about it is that it is so cohesive. Every song, track after track, makes sense. Placements make sense. And they just flow so well. They tell such a story as you're listening to it that it's second to none, really, in my opinion. The songs are just, it's like I'm like at a loss for words. The album is just everything, you know. It's a lot of people, when they hear My Chemical Romance, they think, oh yeah, emo, black eyeliner, you know, gothic, blah blah blah. But it doesn't have to be that way, you know. Maybe that's the persona that they put on because at the time that was what was going on, that was what was popular, and that was the way that people could express anything other than happiness, you know, was to be emo, I guess you could say. But The Black Parade is so much more than just an emo album. It is an album about loss, about acceptance, about denial, about death, about pain, about cancer, about life, about living, about happiness, about joy, about new beginnings, you know, closing chapters. It's got so much. It can help you through pretty much anything you're going through, I think, in life. And Welcome to the Black Parade, which is obviously the title song, the namesake song, is such a beautiful piece of music. That piano chord, is that what you call a piano? Is it a chord?
It's
key?
a key. A key.
But like when you're playing the piano,
a chord is multiple notes. So if it's one note at a time, it's
one note at a time.
Like I would say it's more like a melody than a chord.
You could play me the first note from Welcome to the Black Parade. You could play a lot of people around my age the first note of Welcome to the Black Parade, and they will know exactly what it is, because that song is just so iconic. The music video is so beautiful.
I've had the music video up basically the whole time you've been talking.
I know. It's such a vibe, in my opinion. And especially now that I'm like, and I know like I say this a lot and I joke about it, but now that I'm nearing 30, I'll be 30 in less than a month. And we joke about having like a funeral for my youth for my birthday party this year. And that I said, if I could have it be the most fantabulous Welcome to the Black Parade-esque birthday party, that would be everything that I want in life and more. And it's so true, because it's spooky and beautiful and endearing all at the same time. All of the songs are gorgeous. It's hard to pick. I mean, Welcome to the Black Parade is obviously the best song on the album. Like, obviously, it is the best song on the album. But in my opinion, Sleep, which I like, almost like what you were saying, Jeremy, I didn't like it because I was afraid to listen to it and be disappointed. No, like when you said it, it was like such a relatable way for me to think about it. I didn't listen to it because I was afraid I wasn't going to like it. So I started listening to it only somewhat recently, like within the last like year or so. and it has very quickly become my favorite and like just the most like badass song on that album. And if you haven't listened to Sleep by My Chemical Romance, I suggest listening to it. It starts off a little interesting. It used to scare me. I actually used to not be able to listen to it because like the beginning would actually like give me anxiety, but it's a great song. It's a wonderful album. Gerard Way really put his heart and soul into this album, and it shows. And I will.
Some might call it the last great rock album.
I agree.
Too.
I listen to this album every single day. Just before we went on, I listened to it cover to cover, sang every song. You know, I was with another one of our friends that isn't really into that kind of music, but because I was listening to it and he was sitting there and I was so into it, he's like, no, it's actually good. Like, I want to listen to it more. And that's like such a compliment, you know, especially knowing that somebody isn't into that genre of music, but like your love for it and the way that you're presenting it to that person makes them like it, you know, and at least want to give it a chance. What else could you ask for? The Black Parade by My Chemical Romance. That's my number one. I'm going to stop gushing about it, but I know Oliver has something to say.
No, I think you covered all the bases there. I mean, I love this music also. I think recently there's been a little bit of a stigma around My Chemical Romance.
Yeah, which I don't get.
All you guys can go fuck yourselves.
Yeah.
This is music. You know, that's what it is.
Not to mention Gerard Way is an incredible lyricist. I mean, the songs, the words are beautiful and tragic and just like, it's so powerful. And his voice is just incredible. And, you know, during quarantine, there was a video released of him singing Welcome to the Black Parade live, I believe it was. And, you know, he couldn't really get there like you're used to. But even just
for that crowd too, to hear it for the first time in 10, like, because he retired it for a while,
was so. I keep saying the words impactful and meaningful, but that's what they were. They were powerful. They were, you know, it was rock and roll, literally. Like, it was wonderful. It's everything. That album is everything.
And that's music for you, kids. That's it. We've talked. This must be a 2-hour one.
It's almost 3 hours.
Yes, this is getting.
Yeah, this will be a 2-parter. I
was gonna say.
Just based on I'm not uploading a 3-hour video.
This is a long podcast. We severely underestimated how much we love these albums and how much we had to say.
And we love music, you know, we love bouncing new ideas off of each other and being able to have a, you know, sounding board, you know, to share the things that we love. And, you know, we don't even know if anybody's going to get this far in them or, you know, listen to it at all. But at the end of the day, it's just a nice conversation to have with my friends and to be able to share with you guys. So thank you so much for.
I think it's so interesting too of like, and I kind of knew this was going to happen. I think you guys knew this was going to happen too. Like, it's so interesting how different I am from you guys when it comes to music tastes, because you didn't know fucking anything I had on my list, and I think most of the things I've heard on your guys' list, other than like the oldies, is like I know because you guys like made me listen to them. Or I've listened to because you guys have made me listen to them. Like I know My Chemical Romance, but I've never listened to Black Parade. I don't know. I think that's interesting how well we all get along, and I kind of exist in a kind of separate world musically from you.
Well, I think it's interesting what, just again, like the power of what music can do for you, period, and how many different ways there are to interpret it, and what your vibe might be at different times, you know. And I've never considered myself to be married to one genre of music. I listen to everything. I mean, you guys have both seen my playlist. It is quite literally every single genre of music other than country that you could imagine, and there is even Johnny Cash on there. So
I think that I used to think of myself as the kind of person that liked all different genres of music. And as I get older, I just love rock and roll. Rock and roll, baby. That's where I'm at. rock music, if you want to, glom in like saying emo, like emo is rock music. It's not emo music. It's rock music. Pop punk is still rock music. It's all rock all the time.
Still rock and roll to me.
Still rock and roll to me. That's my genre.
Another guy I wish I could have gotten on my list.
BJ. There's no BJ.
Every single day of my life, legitimately, for like 10 years with my parents.
But he's a good part of our friendship.
But I
too,
think he's
singing Billy Joel together.
Dude, I love Billy Joel.
But I feel like he's another one that. I feel like he's another one that, unless you're listening to a greatest hits album, it's hard to put your finger on which album it is.
His hits are so spread out too. He's made so much.
He's been making music for 40 years now. It's hard.
That is unfortunately why he does not make an appearance on mine. There's no one album that I can call.
I don't think we need to like even do like a Billy Joel appreciation. It's just like common knowledge if you live on Long Island that you like Billy Joel. So it's just you know it's there.
All right.
We pray to our Billy Joel poster every night before we go to bed.
And it's getting about that time for me to do that. Yeah, I'm gonna go.
Late.
I'm gonna go pray to the BJ
time.
poster. We got a long cleanup to do here, Jeremy.
Yep.
So I'm gonna sign out on you. If any of these albums could end the show, what do you think the last track would be called? Guy, it would be called Good Riddance to You.